It's Celeste of Astrology by Celeste. Yes, it is. I'm so excited to have a conversation with Dallisa. Here she is. Welcome. Let me see if oh, there you go. You pushed it. Nice. Let's see if it worked the first time. Let me hit accept again. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Yay, there we go.
Hello,
Hi,
Celeste. It's so good to see you.
it's so good to see you too. Yes, yes. It's been too long. We had such a wonderful conversation last time. I'm so excited to be the host this time. How are you?
We have to talk about all of the things.
All the things. This is going to be a deep conversation. So, why don't you introduce yourself to get
Okay.
started?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this brief. So, I am kind of an accidental psychic medium. I was not planning on doing this for my career, but I'm now in year 9. I am actually 5th generation, but I say accidental because I owned a different company. I was a matchmaker and I was doing dating events in different parts of the United States. And I went off to New York one time and went to a retreat at the Omega Institute, and all of my gifts dropped in the last night of my trip when I was sleeping at a friend's house, and his aunt that had just died hours before came through and wanted me to give her nephew a message. And so that's how it all started. My life completely changed, and here we are.
I love it. Do you know what transits you are having astrologically or no?
No, somebody looked at it at one point. I know the exact date. In 2015, August of 2015 is when it happened. Yeah, but it's interesting. I've had several psychics,
Yeah.
over the years look at my chart at this point, and I have a Pisces moon in the 10th that squares a lot in my chart, and I have on close to the descendant line my Sag sun conjunct Neptune,
Mhm.
and it all is doing a psychic dance.
Yes, yes. I remember looking at your chart. You are a true blue psychic. So anyone who's new to Lisa, you could um, do the carrot, or new to me, carrot, and follow either one of us. Yes. And this is so perfect. I love how these cosmic conversations always happen on the perfect day. It's so interesting how you talked about you used to be a matchmaker, and we had a solar eclipse in Libra this week, the sign of relationships. And today, the moon and Venus are both in Scorpio. So that has a lot to do with Scorpio, the dead, you being a medium. Also, Scorpio energy, so psychic. And like people who have strong Scorpio energy are just in the know. Like you don't want to lie to them because they know right away that it's just not the truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Question for you, Celeste. Have you noticed with Neptune at that late degree? I think we're what, at 28 now, maybe degrees.
Yes.
I have noticed, and I've been doing this for 9 years, right? And I can definitively say that the veil between us and the other side with Neptune at that late degree, I feel like so much of the fog and walls between us and the other side have lifted. It just mediumship sessions that I do, or when I'm communicating with spirit, and it just feels like they're standing, right in front of us, and it's clearer than it's ever been before, but I think it's the Neptune.
Well, it's that. So we are in a place where there's a lot of changing energy. 2025 is such a big year because right now there's so many things at the last degrees. And Neptune, which rules psychic capabilities, it's the higher realms, of the planet of illusions and delusions. Like you said, it's very close to the end of the sign, and it's been on 29 and it's moved back to 28. And 29 is the last degree of each sign. It's a degree of crisis and decay where the sign, the planet is trying to express everything it can around the sign. And like Pluto moved back into Capricorn at the 29th degree on September 1st, and Uranus and Capricorn rules, Pluto rules also. You can think about Pluto as the planet of death and rebirth, and Capricorn, these crumbling structures, and Uranus is at 27. So they're doing what's called like a mini grand trine right at the end of the signs. Uranus is in Taurus. And so absolutely. And on September 17th, how did you do around then? Because we had that lunar eclipse in Pisces conjunct Neptune. We saw it in the real world as this big hurricane, but it was also like a hurricane of psychic experiences and whatnot.
Yeah, I've kind of locked myself at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with such sensitivity that I have in my natal chart, the price of being sensitive is being sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so as much as it's really miraculous and I love being a conduit for messages, it also means that when I go out into the world or in large groups,
Mm-hmm.
I feel everything. And I've been pretty good about keeping the signal turned on or off. And for the most part, I can manage it okay. But I've had to really get myself in a mindset and like talk myself into going out of the house and going to different social activities, because the energy in the collective is so heavy and gritty
Mm-hmm.
that I can't be out there for too long. So I'm trying to walk this road of like not being in avoidance and having the human experience while also protecting my own energy. How about you?
That is so important. Yes. I feel I I like fell into my south node. That's a whole nother story when Pluto went back into Capricorn. But next year on January 11th through for a year and a half, the North Node's going to go into Pisces, amplifying all of that stuff. So it's so important now that we have these tools, because you can't stay in the house for a year and a half. You've got to have your tools to keep you protected, as you know, because there's a lot of frenetic energy, especially around eclipse season. So that's one thing. If you feel like, I have to take a step back between those two full moons, that could be something that you do. But you got to get back out there. So tell people, like, what are some of the tools you use when you walk into a room and you can feel everybody's energy kind of impacting your own?
Yeah, this is my Sag bluntness coming out. But if let's say I'm at a party, like a dinner party, and I'm talking to somebody and I start feeling too much of their energy, I just like cut it and walk away. So if I'm talking to you at a party and I abruptly leave, I'm really sorry to do that to you. But no, it's being mindful of when I've reached my capacity, and not being afraid to say, you know, I gotta go. But also being choosy about when I look at my week ahead, and if somebody asks me to go do something, I sit with it. And I've gotten better about saying, thanks for the invitation. Let me sit with it for 24 hours, or let me get back to you tomorrow. I want to sleep on it. And then wake up the next day and see, how does it feel intuitively? Because what I found is, let's say you get invited to a concert and you're not sure, because that's a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
If you sit with yourself and take some deep breaths or go into meditation, you can actually send your consciousness into the concert, and you can feel what it's going to feel like when you're there. So it's the preview of the energy. And so if you're doing that, you're like, gosh, it feels really chaotic. Or if you go into to it and you're like, it actually feels like a lot of fun. That can be helpful to check in with the vibe before you make your decision. But that's some of that remote viewing and putting your consciousness into a different location before you get there.
That's a great tool. And like sit with it, sit in meditation, trusting your gut for what it says that, ooh, this is too much for me or what have you. I really like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some people, I've been asked by clients and students, and it's like, well, how do I know if it's my intuition or my anxiety? And
Mm.
if we're meditating enough or grounding our energy enough, if we're journaling, if we're filling up our own cup and taking care of ourselves, then if you feel uneasy about something, it's probably because there's a reason to feel uneasy about something. But if you're walking through life feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, burnt out, it could be anxiety that you're feeling, because I know there's so many people out there that are feeling anxiety and depression, and there's just been such an increase of it over these last 4 years.
Yeah, with COVID and everything. Yes. And I feel like anxiety, when you're having anxiety, it's like screaming inside and it's like danger, 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 and it's hysterical. Whereas intuition is a calm voice telling you that's not for you or that's too much. And yeah, and that's kind of like figuring out for yourself the difference between those two things, like really doing a body scan. Yeah. And so, yeah, we've been seeing increases of, it's really important right now, like for people to recognize how they are working through this eclipse season, because that eclipse it was at 25 Pisces, conjunct Neptune, was this huge amplification of energy. And how did you experience it? Was it emotional waves? Was it a lot of crying? Was it feeling disoriented? Like what did you not notice anything at all? Like how have you been feeling over the last 2 weeks is a question I would say for everybody to check in with themselves, because it's a south node solar eclipse we had this week, which is releasing things. So there's huge outflow of energy also as well that we have to manage. And we're seeing it in the collective with this like ramping up as we get towards the election of this intensity of, the attacks and, fighting. I call it like Mars is in a Cancer, fighting amongst the family, people in their own countries, and it's happening all over the world, like fighting against each other, and it's emotional, and it can be like psychological warfare. Yeah.
That
Are
just
you feeling that?
sounds delightful, Celeste. But yeah, yeah, I haven't stopped crying. I
Mm.
say that, and I know that sounds dramatic, but I've just noticed that I'm more sensitive to, people that tell me their stories about their grief,
Mm.
and the people that they lost that they're trying to come to terms with. And yeah, I cry at like the littlest things right now, and not in a way that feels really heavy. It actually feels beautiful. Like I'm seeing the dance that we're on as humans. And because there's so much going on out there in the collective, one thing I do like to ask myself when I am feeling something intense is I ask, is this mine?
Ooh.
Yeah, because especially I'm sure a lot of our audiences, they're these empathic sponges, and they're picking up on all of this energy all around them. And it can feel tricky sometimes. We could come home at the end of a long day and feel really mad, and we don't know why. And it's could be because we were around somebody that was really mad and we took on that energy.
Mhm.
And so we have to get better at discernment and what's ours and what's not.
Exactly. And especially if someone in your household their energy is impacting you, having tools to like, even just building a bubble around yourself and washing it and cleaning it. Yeah. And I think we'll get relief at the full moon is September 17th. So if you're feeling overwhelmed,
October 17th,
oh,
right?
October 17th.
Okay.
I'm sorry. If you're feeling overwhelmed and like, oh my God, I can't take this intensity, you may feel it release October 17th a bit. And by the next new moon, it calmed down a little bit. And then Mars will go into Leo on November 4th, I believe. And that may be where people feel like a bit of, there's some fire again. It's like less of this emotional. We'll have a little bit of a break in some ways with that energy. But right now there's a lot of intensity.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's I love astrology and I'm a huge astrology fan. It's funny, I'm bringing back my show that I used to have in Las Vegas, this 90-minute stage
Oh
show.
yeah.
And the first performance is October 17th that night. And so when I learned, because I didn't know it was the full moon, and I'm like, you know what? It's going to be good energy. But I'm so sensitive to the moon cycles that just being up on stage with, you know, hopefully a very full showroom, I just know that the energy is going to be so amplified. So it should be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, yeah, well, full moons are great for an opening performance. So that's excellent. Yeah. So do we want to talk about, what should we talk about? Should we talk about the election? What do you want to talk about first? Like, people put in suggestions if you want us to talk about anything specific.
Yeah,
But
drop it in the comments. But yeah, the election, and I'm going to also ask you the same question back, Celeste, from your perspective.
Yeah.
Because when I look at the energy, and for those that don't know me or my work, I'm a clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient. So I see symbols, visions, movie clips. I will hear words and phrases that like pass over the right ear, and I'll get some feelings in my physical body. And I am asked all the time recently, I would say in the last 6 weeks, who's going to win the presidential election. And I have looked at this for the last few elections. And previously, it's been very straightforward, where I'll say, okay, Spirit, let's sit down and talk about this election, who wins, and it pops in, and there it is. This one has so many layers to it. And so what I started to do was ask it a slightly different way to Spirit to try to understand where we're headed. So I've looked at it. I've said, okay, show me Kamala's energy, show me Trump's energy, show me what's happening around the election, around the inauguration. There's a couple things that are clear. It doesn't feel like a regular election. What I mean by that is either it's delayed,
oh my God,
there's some kind of like chaos. Because when I take myself to election day, I just feel like I'm being like bombarded, and it doesn't feel like a clean and clear election day. So I'll start there first. So have you been sensing anything around election day itself?
well, I think we talked about this before, that one of the hits I got when I first started preparing for this year is like, are we going to have an election? And now that we get closer to it, I'm wondering if there's something about a storm that causes, like, I first started to think like cyber something, like, we've been having all year long, it feels like, and the government hasn't told us this, but like Bank of America, people's account balances said zero on October 2nd. There was Verizon and AT&T. They've all been, it feels like there's another government kind of testing to see. And obviously around election day would be a great time to really try to cause us chaos. So yes, that's a possibility. But I also thought, it could literally just be a rainstorm that, that because that this hurricane season could be so intense that it causes problems with people being able to even to vote or what have you.
Yeah. So I think we're feeling a lot of the same energy, that it's not an election day like we've had in the past. So as I started looking at the energies involved, what was strange is that it felt like there's a fate point or a destiny point that we're going to hit regardless of who gets elected.
Oh yeah.
So, because I've looked at, okay, if Kamala wins, because right now, honestly, when I looked at it before, Kamala's energy was really big in the energy around who would win between her and Trump. Then Trump's energy got really big. And I'm like, why is it flip-flopping? And so I've come to the conclusion that I feel like free will is still involved in the election itself, but that we end up getting into more of the war energy. But how we get into that war frequency and manifestation feels like it's a slightly different based on who gets elected into office. If Kamala gets elected, I see a lot of discord in the United States, and people that you would consider perhaps the far right, a lot of civil, war kind of upheaval, trying to take back the government. To me, it makes it feel like January 8th was nothing when I look at the energy of it. So I get all of this like chaos and uprise of the people to try to take down the government and what the government can do. Massive irritation, aggravation, anger, rage. So that's what I was seeing if that ends up happening. When I look at, okay, so then with Trump, I know that the algorithm gods are listening, but so I'll try to say it in a slightly disguised way. But I think that I will put it this way. I never want anyone to be hurt. Okay? But I don't think they're done with him. Ooh, and it gives me chills as I say that, which is not a good thing.
He's got Uranus squaring his Mars and ascendant. So he's in like a place where, that he's had 2 assassination attempts, and they're
not done.
Yeah.
They're not done.
And
so
it's like it's a 3-part story typically. Uranus goes direct, then it stops, it goes retrograde, and then it stops and goes direct again. So there's this 3-part energetic kind of thing going on.
Yeah, so I see that if that were to occur, and I would hope that people are warning him, I hope he has a good astrologer, right? But if that happens, then I also saw the upheaval and the uproar against that, and almost like cementing him into this like godlike figure of somebody who tried to save the United States, where like his followers would lift him up. So either way, it feels like we're headed in, and I'm glad you put the Mars in Cancer and brought that up about fighting with the family, because either candidate takes me into this space of feeling like the humans are fighting. And I do feel like it's connected to the United States breakdowns of different systems and government and finances. And I just feel like by the time we get, I don't know, a handful of years from now, just feels like life is so different. And they just showed me like warp speed. Like it feels like it just goes really, really fast. But I don't think we've seen anything yet
Yeah.
in regards to how much of a breakdown we're actually going to have and what that leads to. I think we're starting to feel it, like it's coming, but we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg yet.
It sounds like you're describing Neptune. What's going to happen is Neptune's going to go into Aries in March, and 0 degrees of Aries is a world point, meaning that 0 degrees of all the cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn. But 0 Aries, um, and Neptune is the planet of like beliefs, and Aries conflict, like people being very ready to fight for their beliefs and what have you. And then Saturn goes into Aries, and then Neptune and Saturn meet at 0 Aries in February of 2026. So there is this new energy, and there's this a lot of confusion, a lot of people like finding their own things to be potentially in uproar about. And Saturn in Aries is in its detriment, and it's like being willing, like hardship and conflict around that energy of conflict, and yeah, potentially it could be very negative. But can you see any like positive ways we can use this intense?
I was going to ask you that question.
Well, okay, so I'll just say like earlier this year I predicted, and it came in like fire, that Kamala Harris was going to win, and that, you know, her platform was going to be about uplifting the, you know, trying to bring more more equality, like trying to take on this income inequality in some ways. But either she could be a very healing force for the United States, or like Helen of Troy, kind of launching 1,000 ships, or like if she goes that way and then just doesn't do anything about what she said, that there could be just a lot of calamity, because last time Neptune was in Aries was the Civil War. And it's important that 0 degree, because the United States are midheaven, and so countries have charts just like people, is at 1 Libra. So 1 Aries is opposite. So 1 Libra represents the executive, the president, and the 10th house is the executive branch. So Neptune coming opposite that is like a potential for, like, exactly what you said, people with belief systems trying to take down. And Neptune also has things about religion. I've been seeing a lot of things about how these events, like there are people who want to turn the United States into a Christian nationalist state, and JD Vance is aligned with a lot of these they're called the theological bros. And I heard one of them, who's a big influencer, like literally saying Kamala Harris was a witch. So that's their latest thing to try to take her down, is trying to demonize her, which is so in line with the energy of Uranus, which rules elections on the fixed star Algol, which is like has to do with Medusa imagery, Lilith energy, a woman who will not be subservient, who men fear her sexual power and try to demonize her and destroy her. So yeah, I totally
feel all that. Yeah, a couple of points. So the religion versus spirituality, it feels like that could really come to the forefront, where spiritual people, practitioners, are vilified, kind of like the Salem witch trial kind of energy. I'm not saying it'll get that bad, but it's perhaps even an internal discussion where you have with yourself about what you believe, and are you going to voice what you believe. And so there's something around God and organized religion and things that's coming in too, that feels like it could also be polarizing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you couple that with the polarization of people in the United States, regardless of the delays and the election and the delays again, like the inauguration even feels very strange to me. So when we finally like get through all the delays and people the fighting is kicking up even more, it's like there's not just one thing anymore that people are fighting about, you know? Yes, they'll be fighting about politics and government and how to rule people and Bill of Rights and the Constitution and God and where God is to be placed in the world and not, and you know, how much God are we bringing into our lives. And it's like there's so many layers to what people are going to be potentially fighting about, because we don't have to be in that energy. So I think it comes down to what we personally are allowing ourselves to jump into and what we feel is important to be an advocate for or a voice for. But I think that fighting and all of that upheaval is the fated destined point. Mm-hmm. So I think that's ultimately where we're headed.
Yeah.
I just don't necessarily feel like it's one straight path, that here's how we get there and here's all of the 10 things that are going to happen between now and then. It feels like there's some fluidity in how it comes about. I also think that with free will, because I do think it's a mix of free will and destiny, is if we look at some of the world leaders that have completely become unhinged, and even Putin, like when I look at his energy, I get this sense of, well, before I cross off of this world, before I leave Earth, why don't I just hit a button? So there's something with like some of these leaders feeling this call to their legacy and like what they'll be known for and what people will be talking about for generations to come as it's associated with each of them.
Like
and it's in a sick kind
megalomania.
of, it's kind of like a sick, yeah. So I think also I keep getting, it's actually very jarring. So when I'm in sessions, and this has been happening very frequently over the last few weeks or so, I will be in the middle of a session. It actually happened right as you and I were going live today. And I'm sitting here, and with my clairaudience, I start hearing this alarm, like woo, woo. And it's not a cop. It's not a siren like a cop car or an ambulance. It is like an alarm that goes off to warn people that there's something coming or happening. And I just got chills as I say that. So there's some kind of massive warning.
Stay tuned for a special announcement.
That's like
something I wrote down
about
okay. this time. Yeah.
Yeah. So that there's some big like alarm that people have to adhere to and get out of the way and get to safety. And so I've been getting
I think it storms. I really think it storms.
Yeah, I've gotten visions over the last few years of this massive tsunami that ends up coming in. So it could be a water emergency, but I also get with it, because I just was hearing the alarm. So finally one night before I went to bed, I was laying there in my bed and I said, listen, you keep giving me this alarm. What are you trying to show me? And then they showed me military jets. And I was talking to a military friend of mine about a week or so ago, and she goes, oh, well, was it Air Force or Navy? I was like, oh, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And I said, oh, it's the same jets that you see in Top Gun. She goes, that's the Navy,
Navy.
and that is not a good sign. So I do think there's some kind of military response involved with it. And I've
What do
also
you
been,
get about a submarine? Yellow submarine is something I wrote down.
oh, well, there could be, oh, and it gave me the chills. So there's something with that. So there could be an attack on a military base or a military, yeah, like a military base where they have different submarines and crafts and things that are gearing up for a bigger war. So I do think there's going to be an attack on the US. I do feel like there is a large scale attack that is planned to go off in the United States against a foreign enemy, or a foreign enemy against the United States. So that coupled with the alarm in the Navy aircraft, I'm like, oh my God. So I feel like it's not just one thing that happens. It feels like we're getting like a few different things that are causing chaos and happening at the same time, which throws things into a tailspin. But I do not think that on election night that we will be watching the election coverage knowing who wins. And I don't even think we really know who wins for an extended period of time.
That could be possible exactly when, and something I wrote down, this was a while ago. It's a landslide and the courts are just a delay. So my immediate thought, well, okay, Kamala's going to win and it's going to be pretty big. But now I'm wondering, with all of these hurricanes and with this storm energy, could there be something stormy? So yeah, not to alarm people too much, but yeah, we're in chaotic times. And that Mars is going to be opposite Mars in Cancer, a water sign. It is where it's in the sign of it's a fall. So planets in fall can be like really like there's this chaotic energy opposite Pluto and Capricorn, which government. So that's what you just described is like an attack, water, navy sort of thing against the government. It could be even like Iraq has threatened to attack the U.S. bases in the Middle East, so it could be something over there. We obviously know the Middle East is a big hotbed of there's just this intensity and escalation coming forward. We're in eclipse season. Yeah, I've wondered if I looked at Iran's chart and the eclipse is opposite their sun, and I'm wondering if Israel is just going to go all balls to the wall and force a regime change in Iran.
Yeah, I'm feeling change in leadership as it's tied to that. I also feel like the war energy continues to grow and I just heard pull in other countries. Because I've been feeling this energy of World War III, but it's very strange because it's not being called that. And the US hasn't declared that we're in a world war. But every time I look at it, I'm like, we're in a war. So it just feels like it keeps compounding. And unfortunately, there's just going to be so many more lives lost in wars that are being fought in the Middle East. And what I'm hearing in my ear is that the face of Israel will change. And it feels like on a few different levels, I feel like it's leadership or something tied to how Israel's run. But I also feel like it could be dismantled or look very different in the coming years.
Yeah, Pluto in Aquarius Pluto will go back. So next week is a big week of shifting energy. Like today, right now, we've got this grand trine in water in the sky, and Venus, Mars, and a Saturn are all in a trine. And I called it like dirty water, turbulent water. One thing I really saw was be careful with drugs and alcohol, and especially like college age kids. Like I can see this weekend there being some party in colleges where people like drink so much they get poisoned, or like there's just too easy to just go down the drain. And um,
It,
with this water energy. And then next Wednesday, Jupiter, the planet of abundance and expansion, stops in the sky in Gemini, which Jupiter rules education, higher education. It rules like ethics, religion, things like that, and then starts to go backwards. So next Wednesday is really intense energy day, and it's like there's just a lot of shifting energy this next several days. And then Pluto goes direct 2 days afterwards. So like what you're describing, like these jets from coming in and it being around I mean, it could be something next week, as soon as next week,
yeah,
for around this time.
it feels like a huge October surprise. And I know they
Mhm.
usually say that around elections and how there's always something that happens in October, but it legitimately feels like it's going to be a wild, wacky October. It's interesting, Celeste, what you mentioned about like the drugs and the alcohol. When I'm meeting with mediumship clients, I have been seeing so many people who have died before their time because of drug use. And it's
Mhm.
been this theme lately. It's been very, very strange. I've never had so many drug overdoses that I've been doing readings for.
Have they died recently?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that lunar eclipse in Pisces rules drugs, Pisces, alcohol, all kinds of escapism, conjunct Neptune, like lots of people trying to escape this intensity of the energy. So the recommendation is to be very careful, be mindful about understanding what you can control and what you can't control. Like we can let ourselves get, oh my God, so scared about what is potentially coming up, even though there's not much we can do about it, except someone was asking in the comments about like what should we stock up on to be like mindful. Like everyone should have water in their house if there is some kind of emergency, because no matter where you live in the country, there could be a either a tornado or a hurricane or an earthquake or a this or a that that could mean you're on your own for a week or two. To do you have enough toilet paper, non-perishable stuff to eat? If you live in a storm area, do you have sandbags? Do you have, if you have a generator, do you have batteries for your stuff? You know, these are things you can do to prepare, I think, to make
Yeah.
sure everyone should have an emergency plan, no matter where you would live.
Yeah. I posted a reel about this on my Instagram today about how people have been asking me so many times, how much food and water should I have on hand? And I'm saying 3 months. So each time you go to the store, maybe pick up some extra things when you're there. But one thing people forget is pet food and pet supplies,
Yes.
and also if you have prescription drugs. Um, because you look at what's happening in Asheville, and the hurricane basically destroyed most of Asheville. And how are people getting the things that they need and their necessities? And so even having a go bag that has things in it that would have things like your medications. I used to live in Texas, and I would have to go in my closet and hide with my two cats when the tornadoes would start coming up. And somebody one time said to wear a helmet, and that wearing a helmet during a potential tornado, if your house were to get hit, that helmet actually helps, obviously, to protect your head, but if that tornado starts throwing you around. So if you live in a place that is a tornado zone, you might even want to think about using your bike helmets or purchasing helmets and have those ready too.
I like what you said about pet food. Have enough pet food for a couple of months. Like everyone should not be doing just in time shopping, because as the south node the north node goes into Pisces, the south node goes into Virgo in January. There can be interruptions of supply chains, because it could be about worker strikes with the dock workers have delayed a strike till January 15th, and maybe they'll resolve things, but maybe they won't. And what you were talking about, something I had written down earlier, like a Kamala Harris presidency, the dock workers, truckers, like some, like this coming together to try to like cause failure in the new administration could be something underneath the surface about like what you were saying. And it could relate to, because there's intense. Mars goes retrograde December 6th, then Mercury and Venus go retrograde around the same time early next year, and there's just a lot of backwards energy, and it's an optical illusion, but it symbolizes delays, disagreements, conflicts, and yeah, I can totally see a lot of this, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing also as you say that is regardless who gets officially elected, it feels like the people will try to take out whoever it is that's in office. So either way, the theme of removing the administration comes in. So it's going to be wild. I think that this could be potentially the dismantling over the next 20 years. I'm thinking more like Pluto and Aquarius. It could be the rise of the people and the people taking back the country in some way, and that the office of president or a president of the United States of America is no longer there. There's something that's, I think, going to come out about demolishing certain structures tied to the government. And it just feels like we'll never go back to having one president that unifies the country and gets things done. Like, I just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't, yeah. I don't, I'm trying to look at the comments and see.
My comments froze, so I can't see anybody's comments.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there are a lot of people's thoughts about who's going to win the election. There was a question about your full moon thing. Where is it? How do people get tickets?
Oh, the show. Okay, so I was like, full moon, what are we talking about? So if you go on my website, spiritandspark.com, so spirit and all spelled out spark.com, there's a link in my menu called live shows. And if you go on there, there'll be information on the 2 shows I have coming up in October. Yeah, so spiritandspark.com is where everything's at. All my social media links, everything.
Okay, great. Oh yes, Tony said we talked about seeing water for 2024. Yes, there's so much in water, Saturn and Pisces, and now we have this grand trine in water. So, oh my God, I have not seen this. Anna is saying that the US and UK bombed Yemen today. So maybe that's something about what you were seeing.
Oh,
no. Yeah. There's so much chaos right now, but the north nodes in Aries. So we have to understand that there's this amplification of what we can use it positively for is being pioneering, being independent, having the courage to face obstacles. But there's also this amplification of conflict, and it started last July. And then the South node's in Libra. Libra rules diplomacy and trying to find win-win solutions and being tactful, but also people pleasing and just going along to get along. And so there's a drain in that. And we've seen how You know, there's these conflicts around the world, and all of this trying to come to some kind of solution or ceasefire or whatever, and it just like falls apart because it's a time when it's really especially harder or difficult to get to to get to agreement. Yeah, so it's
And I would also add to that that one of the things I've heard, and this has been coming up the last few years, is that the world is going to need more light workers,
yes.
and not just like having it within ourselves and working on ourselves. Like, yes, we have to do that. That is like a non-negotiable at this point. But also, if you feel a nudge or a calling to work with individuals, with groups, and doing whatever modality you feel called to, this is like, now is the time. Like, get on board. Let's do this, because there's going to be conflict for a long time, and it's going to just feel really bumpy. But I also think that there are babies and little kids that are born around this time that are coming in to help with the rebuilding and the future. And I do think eventually it gets really, really good. But I think it's going to completely dismantle before we get there. And so if we think about it like the Tower card in tarot, you know, the tower is on fire and the people are jumping. And I feel like that is like the card of right now. But what I also associate with that card is after the tower burns to the ground, it's the phoenix rising.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the middle of the tower burning and it's starting to crumble, people are going to be looking left, right, up, and down for any kind of tools, help, how to process what's going on, especially people that maybe haven't been as in tune with themselves as maybe some others have been. It's going to feel like their world is ending. And so how can we help to hold them and show them how from the ashes is where that rebirth actually occurs?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know you have a lot of classes. I've got a bunch of classes. So
well, I think using the
us.
moon cycles is a great way to stay grounded and work on what you can work on regularly. And I do monthly moon cycles. Someone said they live in a basement apartment. Should I go to my family's house? Watch the weather. If a storm is coming, yes, go to your family's house. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, people are talking about how they're buying up, you know, they're buying extra goods. Yes, that's good to have for sure.
Yes.
But like you said, pet food.
Yeah.
I'm yeah, pet food. If you have a cat, the litter. Yeah, I'm going to make sure to stock up this weekend for my doggy, not just for my stuff. I want to pull a card to something that we should like keep in mind for our higher good. There could be a lot of upheaval. There could be some weird stuff around the election. I wonder if that thing I got around the landslide is like a literal thing.
It could be, because I keep getting, when I was looking at this a few weeks ago, I was shown the Pacific Northwest in California. Now you live, right?
We're all
in
here.
The zone.
Yeah.
But I keep feeling like the West Coast of the United States feels prone for some big natural disaster over here. And I also think that New York, and I know like people probably just have New York on their list at all times of like a hot spot for things. But years ago, I was in a group hypnosis session. And it was to look at a past life, but they took us also into a future vision.
Yeah.
And the future vision that I saw is I was standing in New York and I could see, it was my consciousness was there, and I could see Times Square, and there was this huge ball of fire coming down over New York. Oh, it gives me chills even thinking about it. I will never forget what I saw. And when COVID happened and New York was, a huge part of what was happening with the pandemic, I checked in and I was like, that is not it. That is not what I saw. So I do think there's something that basically sets part of New York on fire. So if there's any alarms, warnings, please pay attention. I would rather people get out of the way and get out of town or whatever they can do. And if it ends up being nothing, great. We're glad that it's nothing. But I know so many people get warnings about things and they're like, oh, nothing's going to happen, or oh, it's not going to hit me. And they stay there and then something does happen. So please just take the alarms seriously.
Yeah, 9/11, after the first plane hit, people were evacuating the building and the bosses said, go back to your desks. And some people went back in the building and back to their desks in the second tower. And if they had listened to their intuition, and I think this is about Pluto and Capricorn, like being at the end of Capricorn, don't list the authority. Yeah, trust your gut, use your intuition if you're in a situation where you feel danger, and if the boss says sit down, it's bye.
Yeah, bye. Yeah, you don't have to tell me twice. Yeah, I'm getting ready to teach psychic development. I do psychic development certifications, and I'm getting ready to do those November and December. And so I'll be sending out that email in a couple of days. So everybody on my email list will get those details, but I haven't taught it in a while. But it's that, working with the moon cycles and the energy and being sensitive to the energy and what's happening, so that when you do get that drop in or you do feel that in your intuition, you will know it's your intuition. So, work with us. Work with us. We love teaching people. I'm speaking for you, but we
please.
love it.
Yes. You can come for a personal reading or join a class or what have you. I'm teaching transits for Kepler for people who are, have a solid understanding of astrology. Oh, someone said the star comes after the tower. Is that right? I'm trying to think. What's after
It could. That would make sense. Yeah.
So there's the rebirth, and I pulled the serpent, which is a rebirth, unconventionality, nonconformity card. So when we're talking about, when things get bad, there's always a rebirth. So try not to get too scared about what could be coming. Yeah,
because at the end, I was going to say, at the end of the day, I think we all decided to come here. We incarnated now for a reason. Yes. So it's not about living in that state of fear or trying to be in control, because control is an illusion. And so the more that we can just be in a frequency of faith, knowing that this 3D earth is temporary, that we go on to the other side after we're done here, that life goes on, love goes on. Like, this is just a temporary advanced classroom that we're in. Mm-hmm. And if we can get curious about what's happening now, why it's happening, why we chose as individuals to be here right now, and just try to get your popcorn out and try your best to stay present, stay with your breath, and be open to how it unfolds. And I think these next few years could give you so much growth and expansiveness and this feeling of like, wow, I've learned so much about myself and my surroundings. So yes, there'll be challenges, but there's going to be so many good things that come out of this too.
I agree. Yeah, I think, like you said, we're born at this time. Anna, if you want to ask me anything, you can just email me. It's not on my list because I've had so much on my plate, but if you want one, I'll do one for you. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to bring to your attention. That was there were a lot of comments and questions.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Can we as a collective shift the energy? That's a question. That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I think if what I'm hearing is tipping point in my ear, I think that there is an energetic tipping point that if enough people were tuning into themselves and doing their own healing, then it would absolutely change the world. Because if we're taking 100% accountability for our own emotions, if I'm angry, I'm owning it. Why am I angry? Like, think about if majority of people started getting really curious about their emotions and doing that healing work, it ripples out of us because the energy ripples. And so healed people are kind people. They're nice, they smile, they help a neighbor. And so if one person is doing that and embodying that energy, and it ripples, and then it touches the next person and it ripples. So it would just take so many people that have done that healing work, that it would change everything.
Okay. So, is the solar flare that's going on now adding to the escalation? Patty wants to know.
I think we are absolutely affected by the solar flares. I think we're affected by the moon cycles. And I think we're even affected by the mini moon asteroid that's going around right now.
I haven't paid attention to that. I need to read up on what that is.
It's little. It's a little guy, but I'm telling you, that is an omen.
So is Pluto.
It is an omen because it's here right now, leading up to this crazy election and everything that's going to be coming with the volatility. And here comes this asteroid that's like, I'm going to go orbit Earth and I'm going to go hang out with the moon. I'm like, no. And then it's just going to magically like float off.
That's crazy. Yes. Okay. And somebody has a question. Is the Galactic Federation real? I don't know what that is.
I'm wondering if they're asking about galactic beings that come together in it. It's like a different astral field. So I have heard stories of it. I have seen glimpses of it where some people will do it while they're sleeping if they're going to visit them or go to a meeting or whatever. But the Galactic Federation, as I understand it, is basically what I call it, like a parliament or a House of Representatives, but it's galactic beings from different races. And yeah, I do feel like it exists because I've seen it, but it's in a different frequency, a different dimension.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're up on the hour, so we'll see what happens. We both feel something is like really irregular about the election. We'll see how it shows up. Maybe it's just the chaotic energy of people. Hopefully it'll pop before election day. And this would be something I wish I was wrong about, that it's all, no matter, I mean, we know there's going to be a lot, but all we could do is do what we can, support the candidates we support, make sure we vote, help, there's people writing letters or doing whatever, if that is your thing. If rather than just be scared, what actions can you take to bring the outcome you want, even if it's just prayer and, like you said, putting out healing energy and all of that. Yeah. So remind people again where they can find you and anything you want to promote.
Yeah, spiritandspark.com is my website. It's the best place. I'd recommend adding yourself to my email list on spiritandspark.com because I send out a tarot forecast Mondays, an astrology forecast on Fridays. And that's where you get the alerts and updates about when I'm teaching a class, or the psychic development certifications are coming up. And those will be fun. I'll have them on Zoom, and people will be able to also do a self-paced option if they're into that instead. So yeah, it'll be fun. Let's amp up our connection to source energy. And that class, level 2, is going to have remote viewing and mediumship involved in that. Level 1 is like auras and psychic dictionary practicing and card readings and amping your frequency and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's a good class.
Okay, great. And I'm Celeste at Astrology by Celeste. You can get on my mailing list too, astrologybyceleste.com if you want to stay in the know. But I'm here a lot on Instagram. So, and yeah, on October 13th, I'll be talking about the node switching for OPA, the Organization of Professional Astrology. But thank you so much, Dallisa. This was a great conversation, even though you're seeing a lot of, oh my God. But you see what you see. And it'll be interesting to see how it shows up uh, in the collective. But we know there's a lot of escalating tension right now. So it is what it is. But
Yeah, we'll have to do this again.
definitely. I love talking to you. It went by so fast. I was like, I could talk to you for another hour.
That's my Gemini ascendant.
And I'm Venus in Gemini. So it's like, we could just talk and talk and talk. Well,
I love it. I love it. Well, it's good seeing you.
It was good seeing you too. Take good care, everyone. And yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right.
Okay, bye. I'll make you a collaborator if you want to put it on your wall.
Yes, please. Yes, please.